Did you guys read up to diagnosis and roots yet? Okay.
Were you asked us through?
So Dr. Hammer talks about the highest form of physician. Does anyone know what that highest form is? Or remember?
The one that just look at you and knows, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the one that
Yes.
also,
Called penetrating insight.
yes, penetrating insight. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, I'm not there yet. Give me a couple more, 30 years, maybe 40. So he also talks about the doctor that prevents disease is more important than one that can just diagnose. And that's what's really beautiful about Chinese medicine as a whole, specifically Qigong. But Chinese medicine as a whole is that we get to put our hands on people, we get to look at their faces, we get to look at their tongues, and we get to diagnose not only what is going on at the surface, but what's underneath, what's bubbling underneath. And that's the really cool thing about the shen-hammer pulse, is that we can just put our fingers in there. Because like I talked about last week, is that people don't have that connection with their bodies a lot. So I'll ask people something and they won't know until the next couple weeks that they have that symptom. But when I'm putting my fingers on the pulse, when we are putting our fingers on the pulse, we're tapping into something a little bit deeper. And so I know you guys haven't felt pulses yet, and that whole idea of it is super strange, kind of still. I mean, I know a lot of you have done acupuncture, but I can only speak for myself. When I got in here and had acupuncture and had my pulse taken, but once I put my fingers on somebody's pulse, I was like, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's going on. What am I supposed to be feeling? Is this so choppy? But once you learn how to speak the language of these organs, you get to talk to them at a deeper level and feel where the tumultuousness, where the weakness is, to what they're not experiencing certain symptoms yet. But we can kind of siphon onto it and be like, hey, I'm feeling this on your pulse. This is an area of weakness. Let's not let it get any further. And I think that's a really invaluable gift that we have and we can give to our patients. And that's where it goes to lifestyle and awareness and prevention and the individual. Now, this is something you guys will see often, is that you will have 4 people with the same Chinese medicine diagnosis. All of them will be on different herbs, all of them will get different points, and they all have different things they need to be addressed, even though they have the same main diagnosis. And that's because we are all individually made up.
That's what it should be.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful and intricate. Like we have this, it's like a little web of things that's going on. And that's what the pulse gives us, is that ability not to foresee the future. We don't have a crystal ball. But we can tap into these things that are going on in someone's body and really go deeper. Because, as we spoke about last week, that we're not all created equal. So what my start off and someone else's start off is may end up at the same diagnosis, but I got there a different way than somebody else did. And finding those intricacies and seeing where the weaknesses and the strengths are of people. I've heard a lot that some people are like, wow, the pulse is really doom and gloom. Well, we're all aging. Like we're every day we are closer to demise, not to be a total bummer at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I don't know if you guys know, but like we're all getting there. And we're all getting there our own special way. So when people are like, oh, I hate feeling the pulse because I feel like I have to tell people all these negative things about them. We are all going to degrade. That's science. We are slowly decaying. And that's a scientific fact. How are we going to degrade? It's just a map. And so if you look at the pulse as something that's negative and like, oh, we're just showering people with all this doom and gloom, or I feel like it's so hopeful. And maybe I'm naive. Maybe the way that I look at things is to bubbling, frilly, and unicorns. I don't know. But the way that I look at it is like, hey, we have a map of how you are going to degrade. Let's stop. Let's slow it. Let's prepare your body for the weaknesses that you have and move forward this way. And that's individual for each person. And I think that's really cool. So that's totally just me and my opinion. But I found that my patients really think that it's wonderful. To be able to tell them like, hey, you need to look out for this. These are the areas you really need to strengthen your life and like cut in and all that stuff. And it's hard to balance just sitting down your patient and being like, you gotta get rid of this, you gotta get rid of this, you gotta do that. Like where people don't feel inundated. But just giving them that awareness is the initial spark that can change so much in people. I've had so many patients that like just having one little conversation to let them know where their weaknesses are has changed their entire life from then on, because they're like, I feel so much better when I don't do X. Or I do feel like I didn't listen to you and I did this and I've looked at it and I really realized that. And that's that connection that we get to give to people, because we're not just handing out pills and we're not spending 15 minutes with people and sending them on their way. Not that Western medicine doesn't have a place, but it lacks that awareness. It doesn't really, I mean, maybe they'll come in and be like, you need to stop eating red meat and you need to take these blood pressure medications. Like, those kind of things. But what else can you do? Where are my weaknesses at? And that's that web that we have that we can connect with people and bring them that awareness. And that's where we can be almost the highest form of practitioner. We can help prevent disease, but we can't just laser eyeball them and tell them what's wrong with them. Maybe one day we can get there. Our methods of diagnosis include asking, listening, observing, looking at the posture, locomotion and other movement, skin, tongue, face, eyes, ears, and listening to the sound of voice and as it changes with the subject. We integrate 5-element as well into the program here. Now there is a 5-element school in Gainesville, but we've kind of picked out the things that are helpful and we can add it to, but we're not diagnosing in a 5-element style, but we still use it. And these things I start using as soon as I walk into the door with my patients. Like I have like a little groany voice. It's like very groany. And that's diagnostic. Like people that know can diagnose me just from hearing me and seeing the way that I move, the way that I stand, the way that my eyes crease. One of the coolest classes that we have in here is the face reading class. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's incredibly intricate. And now all these things are to be used as tools and not like, you don't want to instantly judge people by the minute they walk in the door, but you can help them know things about themselves. And we have to ask a lot of questions, some of which people find really probing. And one of the first things I always do when I sit down with my patients is I'm about to ask you a lot of weird questions, a lot of them about poop, to be real honest. But like we gotta get through this together, and there's a reason for this. And Chinese medicine isn't just fill out this form and we're done. Is that we gotta figure out your whole lifestyle, from what you do when you first wake up to what you do right before you go to sleep. And I feel like we're a little bit of like health detectives. Like we are constantly trying to figure out what you do wrong. Where are they messing it up? Where can they help themselves? Because really the power is theirs. We're just facilitating it. Like when people are like, oh my gosh, you healed me. No, I didn't. You did. You walked through that door. I stuck some needles in you, but your energy is the one that healed. Like that's all you. That's your body doing the work. It's not me. And you're the one that's going to have to continue doing the work until the day that you die. I'm just here to bring that awareness. We are all just here to bring that awareness, to ask, to listen, to find the right things, to do the detective work, to sometimes do the dirty work and be like, look, you're going to have to stop eating 4 donuts a day. You're going to have to. Like, those are the things you have to tell some people. And other people, I have some people that can eat, like, absolute trash And they're still one of the healthiest patients that I have. And that again goes back to,
Essence.
Terrain.
to their terrain. Is that I have some patients that do some wild stuff and they're way healthier than my patients that do that. So my advice to them is different than it is to the other people. Whereas some people, I'm like, you have to get exactly 8.5 hours of sleep and drink a glass of water when you wake up, because those are the kind of things that we have to find out for them. And that's why having these things at our tools I can't even think of what I'm trying to say right now. Having the tools in our toolbox is really important. And that's why when we meet people, from the very first time that they walk through the door, they're already starting their treatment. Now, like I said, I can't diagnose someone from the minute they walk in. Some people you can, when they're way agier than others. But most of the time, it takes a long time until you're sitting there with all of this stuff in front of you after I've taken the pulse and I'm like, how am I going to piece this together? And then you get there. But the cool thing is that we have these tools. We have the option to dig deeper and to find out other ways. Because maybe you guys will be fantastic. That will be amazing if you guys could just see people walking and be like, all right, they got heart sheet agitation. And sometimes you can, and that's awesome. But we have the tools if we can't as well. And that doesn't make us less of practitioners. I mean, I guess we're not the phase 1, but I don't know a lot of people that are. We are always listening for what is not said, that we call listening with the third ear, and for gestures and expressions that the patient might make associated with certain subjects that we call looking with the third eye. There's so many questions that Dr. Hammer has in our opening forms. And one of the things that I really like to keep in my forms that we have here in the clinic, and I'll bring in some forms for you guys to see. Have all of you guys been treated in the clinic now? Okay. I think one of the most important questions on there is, how willing are you to work on this on a scale of 1 to 10? And you'd be incredibly surprised how many people are like, a 2, even though I'm in a 10 of pain. And that's where you already get to sit down and talk to them. Like, you already know something right there. Why is it a 2?
Sure.
Maybe. But people give you clues along the way, and we have to piece them together gracefully. Because we can't force someone to get better. There's a lot of patients that are going to come through that you're going to ask yourself, why do they come to see me? Why are they paying? And then every week they undo what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing for their body. But you can have that conversation gently, but is it our place to be like, you don't deserve acupuncture? I don't really think so. I have the conversation with them, like, unless you do the work, I'm really just kind of putting a Band-Aid on this stuff. But sometimes that's the first step. And we have to find out where those people are, and that's where listening and seeing with the third eye and the third ear is really important, because we have to figure out what's blocking them from that. And I don't want to go too deep into things, but we have a whole bunch of things that are called blocks to treatment emotionally that we have to traverse before we can even stick needles in people. And sometimes we can treat people for a while and not realize that they have one of these blocks to treatment. And so you can be doing acupuncture and doing all the right points on these people and not get the results that you want. And then you finally go back and you're like, what are the blocks to treatment? Oh, okay. Yeah, I missed that one. They definitely have a block to treatment. And a lot of times it's emotional. It's our meridians, the emotional components of the 5-element meridians are blocked and the energy isn't flowing into one another. Or they have an emotional component that they are not willing to let go of. So no matter how much, not willing, or maybe, I don't want to say not willing as in they're sticking their feet in the ground. Some people don't know. I've had them before, and I've had patients before that didn't even know the thing was bothering them, that they didn't move on. They're like, oh, I've been to therapy, I thought I dealt with this. Our bodies, I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, if you've heard of it, where we keep our traumas in our bodies at a cellular level. And this is a Western medicine book, just from a psychologist, that talks about that they're starting to see that we are storing this stuff in our DNA. And it's passing on. So even if we do all the right things energetically, if we don't get that block out, how are we going to move their energy freely? How are they not going to be in pain if they have this huge roadblock in their energy? So that's why it's so important for us to swan dive into the information as soon as we get it. I'm constantly writing notes. I think people probably would think I'm really mean because I'm like, their eyes look puffy on this day, da, 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 da. You know, like you have to write these things down because everything is information. Maybe not all of it is usable, but we need all that information down and to be able to go back and to weigh these things out. And as you guys learn more about Chinese medicine, it's the plight of being in, they say that the same about medical school, is that everything that you come across, you're like, oh my God, that's me. I don't know if you guys have been there yet.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh my goodness, do I have kidney yang deficiency and yin deficiency? And is my spleen ever going to be okay? And like all these things that are going through your mind as you're traversing, learning about these things.
Hyper-awareness.
Yes. So yeah, there's awareness, there's low awareness, and there's hyper-awareness. And we're trying to get them to a place of non-panic.
Yeah.
But also making sure that we're catching everything. Let's see here. We talked last week about normal pulse and how that's different for everyone. And you guys have, I don't want to go too deep into this because I don't know where you're at. I'm like meridians.
Lung.
You started the one.
You started the line? Okay. So management involves not simply the treatment of symptoms, altering the root that created the symptom. The treatment involves many modalities: needles, massage, oriental exercise, herbs, diet, meditation. Diagnosis in the root provides us with preventative medicine in the form of information about the disease processes that has not yet revealed itself clinically, and about what drives that process in an individual lifestyle. I'm going to tell you guys a story of one of the students that we had here. I'm going to change all the names of the people. We had a student here, and she was getting her pulse done in the clinic, and one of the supervisors did not like what they felt in the pelvis lower body. And so there's the main pulses. Again, I'm trying to make this very simplified. But then there's one that's for like the whole pelvic region. That could be the hip, that could be the uterus, that could be all that stuff. And the supervisor kept finding something that we call muffled in there. And that could lean towards what we call phlegm or cancerous things. And so the supervisor was like, I really need you to go get an ultrasound. And the student was 26 years old. She was like, no, like, I'm not going to do that. And so every time she came in for treatment, the supervisor was like, I'm really freaked out about this pulse. Will you go check it out? And it ended up that the girl had a grapefruit-sized tumor on her ovary, which she had just had a gynecology appointment the week before, and they had completely missed it. So, because why would they be looking for that in a 26-year-old girl that didn't have any symptoms, you know? But because someone understood what normal felt like for this girl, because she'd been feeling her pulse for so long, that when she felt this abnormal feeling, and she's like, oh, it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse, she was able to apply it to her normal and save this young woman's life. And so, while some people could say that the pulse is pretty doom and gloom, I think that's hopeful. No one wants to sit there and be like, hey, I think you might have cancer. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that anytime you feel anything, you gotta feel it out, you gotta apply it to their normal. But we are seeing with our fingertips a change in something that we are used to, and that's why being completely receptive to the possibility. And bringing that awareness up, asking the right questions. And I'm sure even if they found nothing, that girl would have been grateful that she even went and checked so that nothing was there. But I know that that student was forever grateful to that person. Forever. So it's really important to keep that even keel of approaching the pulse with respect, while not freaking everybody out with all the information that you get as well, you know? All the information, like, you don't want to just be like, well, your kidneys are shot, and your spleen is terrible, and you have some lung disorders, and even like so basically, you know, like, it's this graciousness, while also pressing the importance of taking care of the only body that we have. It's very, it's a tight line. So we've already discussed diagnosis. It's important to mention in passing the steps that the process that lead to treatment. Those steps include the acquisition of information, the assessment of that information using several charts leading to a diagnostic formulation, which is an integration of all of the above. This results in a management formulation, including the current prevailing issues, root issues, and etiology of disharmonies, derivative issues, primary derivative issues, secondary derivative issues, and finally management inflammation. We're not going to talk about that stuff now. That's for way down the line. I'm sure you guys will love those forms. Treatment is another term for fix what you find. Using at best the treatment principle that is in the TCM antithesis of calm that asks the patients to contemplate what in their lifestyles caused the symptom that brought them for treatment. Now, I would implore you to not word it that way. You can. We've definitely had some students in the past that basically are like, what are you doing that's bringing you here? And it works for them. I don't think I have the personality to pull that one off. But really finding out what it is, because sometimes it's not even the same thing that you would think would be wrong. We really just, I keep hammering this in, and I'm very sorry that I'm being repetitive, but like finding that one piece, that missing puzzle piece, doesn't always mean that they're doing something wrong. It's just not right for them. And that could be something we've talked about, like Jamin talked about eating smoothies every morning and things like that. Like you think that you're doing the right thing. My mother gave us vegetables with every meal, and she gave us canned vegetables because we grew up very poor. But also to this day, not to this day, because I was like, hey, you can afford real vegetables now, maybe you should. And she was like, it's all the same. And I had to sit down with her and educate her on the difference between canned vegetables and normal vegetables. And that's just because her knowledge was different. You know, she grew up at a very different time than we did, and food was sold differently. She was a part of the fat-free movement, you know, like that whole thing. So just letting people know that the things, and she taught a nutrition class on being fat-free back in the 80s. Like, that's just, like, but she thought she was doing the right thing. And that's where you're finding these things in people where they think that they're doing the right thing for their body, and they could be hurting themselves. I had a patient that I had given a formula with cinnamon in it. And so they looked up cinnamon online. They were like, oh, cinnamon does all this stuff. So they bought like this huge, they went to GNC and got like this huge pack of cinnamon. And so the patient calls me and they're like, so I saw that like you had cinnamon, and then like, so I went and researched cinnamon, and so I've been taking about like 6,000 milligrams of cinnamon a day.
Oh my God.
And he's like, I can't stop sweating. And I was like, I was like, will you please stop? So like people think, and I've done this many times with patients. Patients think, if this is good for me, I should just run with it. So even teaching people how to just learn some balance can change their life. Because if you do, like, I'm telling you, once you tell them one thing, it's like you got to take it to the end. I gave a patient a moxa stick to take home with her, because I travel back and forth from here to Georgia. And I told her, I was like, you hold it close to the skin, you never let it touch the skin till it gets red, till it gets hot, and then you take it away. Put it out in sand, use it again when you're watching TV at night. We just want to warm up your spleen a little bit. Explain the whole process. I came back in 3 weeks, and she had burn marks all down her stomach, and she was like, you told me that if I get it warm, this is a true story, if I get it warm it'll work. So I figured, what about if I just like touch it? And this is honestly something that you guys will run into quite often, is that people think that like, if it's good, more must be better. And I think that's part of a problem with our society, is reminding people that sometimes less is more. And especially when it comes to herbs and other things like that. Now I make people sign something that says, this is the rules, will you sign it before you take them off?
Please don't burn yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
She was like, are you going to tell your students about this? I was like, yeah. Absolutely, I'm telling them about this. Yeah. So, Dr. Shen, with whom I apprenticed almost every week for 8 years, and less frequently for another 19, repeatedly emphasized Chinese medicine in the life. Com pays close attention to the patient's lifestyle as a primary causative factor of disease and a key component of the treatment plan. Our students are trained to identify lifestyle issues and work with the patient in helping them make the necessary changes. They learn how to establish a therapeutic working relationship, the key to a successful healing intervention. Now, when he talks about this, it goes back to finding how you can speak to each person. Now, that was very hard for me at first, because I don't get a lot of certain social cues. I'm really bad at them. So I'm very blunt, and I just kind of like blurt things out, and I have to learn that some people can't handle that. And then if I try to like work around it, I make it way worse, and I make everyone in the room uncomfortable. So I've had like, luckily, patients that can handle me are the ones that find me. But you still have to learn how to talk to people to not defeat them, but also encourage them without letting them know that everything's okay. And that's what that working relationship is talking about, is finding how you can communicate with that person, which is very hard for me, but it works out eventually, not all the time. But finding where I can say, like, this is a problem, but not scaring them. And I pray that you guys are much better at it than I am. But being gentle but firm, being understanding but also motivating. Because we want to meet those patients where they are. We want to be like, wow, that was really terrible, what happened to you? I'm sad for you, I'm sad with you, I'm helping you carry this, but we also got to work through it. So challenging them and meeting them where they're at right then, seeing where we can go from there. So the therapeutic relationship is so many layers, because you're wearing a lot of different hats. You know, we're teachers, we're educators, but we're also facilitating the movement of their energy. And I feel like a lot of the times we're therapists. Not that I would ever, like, I don't ever claim I'm a therapist, but a lot of times when your patients are going through the worst part of their life, you're the one they're gonna look for. And that's because we've created that safety net of healing, which I feel like our society has really lost. I always think of like that old crone in the woods in the forest, you know, where everybody used to bring everybody to get their medicine, and because they trusted her and they knew that she could give them the things that they needed, and there was that safety there, that she didn't have any ulterior motives. And I feel like with medicine a lot of times, when I first experience patients, it's that they're always so cynical, and they always think that we have ulterior motives. You know, oh, you're just trying to sell me something, or, you know, like, and until you break down those walls of like, that's not why I'm here. You're the one that walked through the door, you're the one that came here for this. And so building that therapeutic relationship it's taken, some people, it's immediately. They realize that I'm too dorky to lie or something and like about it. And like then, or these other people where it takes months. But those are the people that I've had the deepest connection with. Because they inherently do not trust me. They have a distrust for medicine. They have a distrust for doctors. They've been hurt before. Because again, we're usually people's last resort. People have already been to every specialist and every doctor, and they come here and they have a chip on their shoulder and they're like, I don't really believe this is going to work, but I'm here anyway because I have nothing else to lose. And you have to kind of chip away at that without being offended. Because that's their stuff. That's their stuff they're projecting. But we're glad they're there. We're glad they're finally there. And just metaphorically holding their hand through this process, because it's kind of like a recovery process, because people fall off the healing wagon and they're so scared to tell you. Or my one patient wouldn't let me feel their pulse. They were like, I had too much to drink last night. You can't feel my pulse. I was like, I don't care. I need to feel your pulse. You know? So I mean, like, some people treat us like cops a little bit. So you got to break that down. So as well, calm place close attention to those issues about which a person has no choice. Constitution, inherited. Early insults including trauma during pregnancy, shock, toxicity, birth trauma, incubators, emotional mental stress, abandonment, as the earliest primary disease etiologies prior to lifestyle choices. The things that I learned in this building about the things that affect our body are both devastating and empowering. Because we all experience trauma in our life. We all have our own special trauma. You know that saying that everybody is doing the best that they can. Dr. Hammer says everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have. Every single one of you is doing the best that you can with what you have. We've all been dealt different cards. Some seem worse than others, but no, nobody has, I very rarely have met people that have come to acupuncture school that have had the peachiest life. We inherently want to help heal because we know what it's like to hurt. And because of that, we can learn these things that we do, that like the tiniest things that your mother did while she was pregnant, her emotional state. These things that have, or just occurrences throughout your life, realizing what your emotions do to your body and the emotions of those around you. And as you guys get to dive into Dragon Rises Redbird Flies later on, that our own personalities are damaging our energy. So,
Super.
yeah, I know. As a metal type of person, I like everything in its place, but that means I have a really hard time letting go. My lung and large intestines are really weak. I don't like things coming in, I don't like things going out. I like it right here. And like that's something I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. And my poor lung and large intestine are really bummed out about it. They're like, go back to therapy, Shannon. No. So these are these things that we have to create this relationship that we can talk to people. How are you a problem with yourself? Shannon, why won't you just let some things go? These are these questions that we have to traverse with these people, which I can't stress to you enough. Patients are both incredibly draining and the joy of your life. They're both. I call them my children because they bring me, there's some patients that just make my day better. And then there's some patients that are the hardest one that Dr. Hammer talks about. Why are they the hardest one? Maybe because they spark something in me that makes me uncomfortable. So we're constantly changing. We're constantly being aware of not only them, but us. How do we become better practitioners? Why do they irk me so bad? Why do they make my liver go and do these crazy things? Why do they make my lungs do this? Why do I get really sad when this patient comes in? I have some patients that, like, every time they cry, I cry. And I'm not a crier. I used to not be a crier. I'm becoming a crier as I get older. It's a real bummer. But, like, why are they doing this to us? Why? Why are we doing this to them? I have some patients that come in that, like, are just angry all the time. Like, I'm angry when I'm here and all this kind of stuff. These are things we're writing in our notes. They're angry when they come in. They get worse as they kept, like, it's, this therapeutic relationship is constantly pulling in information and seeing what applies. And the good news is almost everything does. So it's information overload. But it's also the ability to talk to these clients and be like, everything is a symptom. Everything's either a symptom or a cause. And so we get to traverse those, and we get to talk to people about that, about how are you a problem to yourself. And sometimes that question alone will change people's lives. All right. And is there anyone in this room right now who is not presently concerned or worried about their children, their husband, their health, their finances, their future, their family, their home, or some other worry? Please raise your hand if you're not worried at all. That's literally no one. So when our patients walk into the room, that's what Dr. Hammer is saying, is they're in the same position. But not only that, but they're walking into a room with someone about to stab them with needles, that they're not sure what this does or how it works or who these people are, who am I, who are you, like, on top of everything else. Because I guarantee you, I have not had one patient walk through my door that's like, I'm perfectly healthy and I'm super happy and everything is great. No one does that. So remember that the difficult patient has not chosen you as their victim. It is what makes them difficult that you are chosen to heal. I love that. That's Dr. Hammer's words. Those are not mine, those are Dr. Hammer's, and I love it. Because sometimes, I'll be honest with you guys, sometimes I feel really victimized by my patients. Like, they can just be a handful. And that's when I have to step outside of myself and be like, Shannon, why did they choose you to help them? And I mean, I don't know if a lot of you have worked with children. They're the same way. They're the exact same way. They test their boundaries and they lash out when they don't feel like they have control. We're all just big kids. And I don't believe anybody that says it's different. Because I mean, we're all just children. We are the same age back then. And like, our brains are still the same brains. And it can't tell the difference in time. So I try to approach everyone with as much grace. I don't always succeed. I'm not saying that I'm some superstar. But it's a goal. It's a goal. To try to treat people with as much grace as I would my nieces or nephews. Why are they acting out? Why are they lashing out? Why are they being a brat? Why do I act like a brat sometimes? You know, like, and our patients are allowed to be bratty too. And it's kind of traversing that and finding out where they don't feel safe, because that's the core of it, is us not feeling safe. And a lot of them don't feel safe in their own body. And we have an opportunity to weed that out and help them feel safe in their body. They're trapped in this body that they feel is trying to hurt them. Why would they not be defensive? Why would they not be angry? Why would they not be combative? You're being attacked from the inside out. So having a little bit of grace with them and having that awareness for yourselves, and also saying that to them sometimes. That, yeah, you totally deserve to be pissed off. Your body is attacking you. the only one we got. And sometimes allowing people to have that permission to be upset about it is the first step in healing. Because everybody, like, we live in a society of toxic positivity. Have you guys heard that term?
Oh my god, love and light. Ooh.
Say that one more time.
Toxic positivity?
Oh, positive, sorry.
Yeah, where you can come and be like, the worst possible thing just happened, and people are like, well, be grateful, it's probably a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, this sucks. I would like to think that this sucks. And I have so many patients, and I feel like it's the most sick patients that are like, I'm just trying to figure out what this means, and like, you know, like and I'm like, who told you that? Who told you that you can't be upset that your body is failing you? That's a huge grief, that's a huge burden. And a lot of the time they're hearing that from other people around you, that it's all in your head, or you need to just rise above it, think positive thoughts, and you won't be in constant pain anymore. Those things are good. I'm not saying that like meditation and positivity are a bad thing. Please do not get me wrong. But it also really sucks to be in pain. It really does. And to have all these other things that are going on. And sometimes just giving people the space to experience a place to be like, I'm really upset at my body right now. I feel like this is unfair. I didn't deserve this, or I didn't do the things that I have, that I see other people that have a different terrain than I do, and they don't know how to say it that way. But it's upsetting. It's upsetting, and just sometimes that awareness of allowing them to be upset is the first step in their healing. And is the first step in creating that therapeutic relationship, is just listening. Just listening without an opinion on what's going on in their body and how they feel about it. Really. The center and focus of every esoteric religion, the central issue of science, the central goal of psychology, is to make the unconscious conscious. Awareness is the ultimate goal of Chinese medicine as well. Acupuncture, the needles, generate awareness, as discussed in Dragon Rise's Redbird Flies. Needles can break the maladaptive neurotic cycles when talk therapy does not. Our senses are our primary tools of awareness. In 1919, William Osler, the Dean of Western Medicine, wrote, "Learn to see, learn to hear, learn to feel, learn to smell, and know that by practice alone you can become expert. Medicine is learned by the bedside and not in the classroom. Let not your conceptions of the manifestations of disease come from words heard in the lecture room or read from the book. See and then reason and compare and control, but see first." I 100% agree with this. Your first 2 days in clinic, you will learn so much more than you ever will listening to my tiny, groany, metal voice. We become something different when we're facilitating healing for someone else. I became someone different, and I truly believe that every single one of you too will a lot of you already have patients, so you already are in that mindset, like, because I know there's a lot of massage therapists in here, but the exchange of awareness to each other changes you. And you can read all these books, and you can know these things, and I'm not saying, like, throw tests away, obviously. Like, you know, I'm saying that we learn more just being with other people and learning other people with the things that we now have in our toolbox. The practice of Chinese medicine is the practice of awareness. The tools of awareness are the senses, both physical and psychological, of the practitioner. Those are what we intend to convey here at Dragon Rises. Awareness begins with self-awareness. Through the practitioner's own struggles, they know their patient's suffering. That goes back to Some of the most amazing healers I've ever known are the most broken people I've ever met. It's because they know what it's like. They know what it's like to be at rock bottom. I'm not saying that if you've had like a super easy life, you're not going to be a good healer. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what I love about this medicine is that when we feel unhealable or broken or abnormal, or we find this medicine and then we're able to give that gift to someone else. And I really love that. I really love that because brokenness is that first step of awareness. And we get to connect that with our patients. The practitioner's courage to know themselves and become, in spite of it, will become part of the bond with their patients. We are here imperfect models of both striving to reach these qualities. We're constantly evolving. And I'm going to tell you now, you're going to be in school for 3.5 years, but you're going to be studying Chinese medicine for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. I feel like I know nothing. It's thousands of years of knowledge, and I've been doing this for 10 years now. Thousands of years of knowledge. And in a lot of fields, 10 years is a lot. It's not. I'm a child of this medicine, an infant. And every day I learn something more. And our patients are learning with us. And every day I have to check myself and my energy and my mind and my moving forward, where I am in that day, my pain levels, because I have to meet my patients where it's at. So this is a tough job to have, but it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling. Because it uses the broken ones. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of the island of misfit toys. So we'll talk about individual next week and hopefully have a guest speaker.